I've been living in Albania for almost 4 years, and I thought it's about time I make a little video that talks about things you need to know before coming to Albania. First of all, let's talk about when is the best time to come to Albania. July and August are the summer season here. Prices go up more so on the southern coast of Albania, but the prices will increase. It's the tourist season. There's tons of people here. It's when the diaspora, all of the Albanians that have moved out of the country, come back to visit. My personal recommendation would be to avoid July and August. If you want good weather, the months before and the months right after. The weather's not quite as hot, but it's still wonderful. So when I recommend people to come to Albania, it's usually May and June or September and October. Unless you're looking for snow, and then obviously come the wintertime. Secondly, accommodation. All across Albania you have hotels. You have booking.com bookings, you have Airbnbs, you have guest houses, which are basically like hotels, and it all depends on what kind of experience you want. The hotels are obviously the least involved. If you want your own place, Booking or Airbnb, oftentimes they will have small kitchens or living rooms and a TV. Sometimes they're even other people's homes that no longer live in the country and they rent it out. The thing that you might run into when you do that is sometimes the person hosting you doesn't speak perfect English, but you know, you're traveling to a country that doesn't have a lot of English in it anyway, so you'll have to get over that. Guest houses, if you want a very cool experience, guest houses in some of the more traditional cultural places up in Theth and Valbona or Korcha, or you know, kind of outside, off the beaten path kind of guest houses are amazing. They're usually, you know, they have home cooked meals, they'll have some form of entertainment, some music playing or something like that. It's a nice way to really experience kind of Albanian hospitality. With Airbnb and Booking, you don't really get the same level of that just because you're staying in an apartment. It's similar to a hotel. Hotels are easy, they're around, they're usually cheap, and you kind of get what you pay for. These first couple tips are really for someone who's coming to visit Albania. However, if you're thinking about moving to Albania, I highly, highly recommend you check out the sponsor of this video, expatsinalbania.com. Expatsinalbania.com is an easily accessible and well-organized online platform designed to facilitate expats coming to Albania. Denisa Katza Bradley, the founder of the site, is a native of Tirana that fled communist Albania in 1990 and lived abroad for the next 22 years. She's been back in Albania for several years now and feels that her mission is to support the transition period of a newcomer in Albania. Having lived in North America for most of her adult life, she understands the needs of other North Americans or Europeans while adjusting in a developing country. The site offers valuable resources to anyone trying to deal with the logistics of moving their lives to Albania for an extended period of time. They aim to simplify your arrival and installation in Albania by giving you the necessary information, assisting with residency, housing, both rentals or purchasing, and even exploring Albania through tours. They really have everything you'll need to make the transition as smooth and easy as possible. The whole thing started with the launching of a Facebook group with the same name, Expats in Albania, linked in the description, that provides information for activities and events for expats, as well as being a general forum for any and all questions about Albania. So if you're interested in moving to Albania but intimidated by the process, click the link in my description and visit expatsinalbania.com to get the assistance you need. Next up, we're going to talk about the currency. Albania is a largely cash-based society. It's outside of the main cities. It's hard to find somewhere that will accept credit card. Usually the larger chains, some grocery stores, sometimes the nicer restaurants, and most hotels will accept credit card. However, you always want to make sure you check with a hotel if they'll accept a credit card before you stay there. I had an experience where I booked a hotel, they said on Booking that they could accept credit card, and when I got there I was about to take my stuff to the room and I just happened to ask and they said no. And I did not have the cash with me to pay for it. So always check before you actually stay. Society is largely cash-based, so you're going to want to get Albanian lek. Currently, as I'm filming this video, the exchange rate between euros and lek is 120 lek for 1 euro, and for US dollars it's 115 lek for 1 US dollar. Now, Here comes the confusing part. The story that I've heard is that during communism, the communist government wanted to make the Albanian lek seem more powerful than it was. So they just added a zero to all of the currency. And as a result, that has not completely left. You have old lek and new lek, where the old lek is 10 times as much as the new lek. $1 US would be 1,150 old lek. But old lek is literally just something in the people's minds. It has nothing to do with what's actually exchanged. So, listen carefully. When you go into a large restaurant, a chain grocery store, these sorts of things where there's official numbers on things, that's going to be a new lek, and that's the actual price you're going to be paying. If you know a little bit of Albanian, you can hear what they're saying. The person talking to you might say, oh, your dinner was 15,000 lek, but it really was only 1,500. When you get into smaller villages, prices written on things, if you're buying fresh produce or in the market, people will often speak in old lek. Sometimes when there's foreigners, they'll say it in new lek. Sometimes they won't notice and they'll say it in old lek. It's confusing even for me, who has lived here for 4 years. I don't know why people still do it, but they do it and there's no changing it. So if you're walking through the market and it says for 1 kilo of apples is 600 lek, that is not $6. That's actually 60 lek, and it's basically 60 cents for a kilo of apples. So to sum up that whole spiel really quickly, the thing that people often will say to you is 10 times more than what the price actually is. So always try to make sure you know if they're telling you it's an old lek or if they're telling you it's a new lek. As I alluded to a little bit earlier about when is the best time to come to visit, July and August often prices will increase. Definitely at hotels, sometimes in restaurants. If you go to the south of Albania, to the Riviera, to the beautiful beaches down there, prices will often be inflated a bit. That's not what the price is all year round, usually. And so because of that, it's another reason why I would say visit outside of the summer season. Now, if you're going to be here for a little while, you're going to want to be able to get around. You don't want to just stay in Tirana, you want to travel a bit. There are two primary ways to do that. You can rent a car, which is usually not super expensive and is a great idea if you want to see all of the nooks and crannies of the country, the part of the country that I fell in love with. The problem with renting a car is that if you're not used to driving here, then it can get a bit sketchy. I made a video about driving in Albania, and I will link that in the description, and you can watch it so you can kind of better understand how to operate here if you're driving. Renting a car is not a bad option, especially if you're trying to get to very specific places. However, if you want to go with the cheap thing and you're just trying to stay in the big cities and the main cities, not even the big cities, if you're just trying to stay in cities, use the public transport. There's tons and tons of minibuses, and you could probably access every single village in the entire country through public transportation, through a minibus somehow. And the prices are pretty low. They've increased since I've gotten here, but to get across the country should not cost like 10 euros, maybe 10 euros. I haven't done it. I drive my van around everywhere. But from one city to the next for a couple of hours, to get from here in Pogradec, where I live, to Tirana, which is about a 2.5 to 3 hour bus trip, is 500 lek, which is less than $5. So if you really want budget and you want to just stay in main cities, that's the way to go. Don't bother renting a car. However, if you want to see all of the cool places that I show on my Instagram or elsewhere on my YouTube channel, you might want to think about renting a car. Language, I've talked about it a bit before. I don't speak Albanian fluently. I know enough to get around. I can communicate with booking.com managers, grocery store, restaurant, those sorts of things. I can do the basics. If you're outside of the big cities, especially outside of Tirana, chances of you being able to speak English with people are very low. Not a lot of people speak English. People that are about 30 years old and younger will usually speak some English because they've been learning it at school. People above that, it's rare for them to speak English. The further you get away from the big cities, the less English there is. I know people here that speak a lot of English. I know people here that speak absolutely no English. It's across the board and you can never be sure. So I would recommend learning a little bit of Albanian. You don't need to know a ton, but kind of enough to show that you're making an effort. And then, you know, pick up what you can while you're here. Speaking of the people, I love Albanian people. They are generous, they are hospitable, they're usually very, very kind. If you're a tourist, you're going to stand out. They'll be able to detect that you are a tourist or a foreigner or something. And Albanian people, especially the older people, often stare a lot. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're not trying to be rude. They're not trying to upset you. They're just, maybe they've not seen someone that looks like you before. Maybe they're just curious what you're doing there. They're just going to be staring at you. I still get stared at frequently. Maybe it's because I'm carrying a giant camera around, but I get stared at all the time. And I cannot emphasize this enough. There's no malicious intent whatsoever. They're just curious. They're just watching. However, they, as a general rule, Albanian people are so helpful. Even if they don't understand exactly what you are saying, even if they don't know who you are, even if you cannot speak the same language at all, they will do what they can to help you out. From personal experience, one time I was looking for a very particular baked treat. I walked into a bakery, they didn't have it, and I asked where I could find it, and they tried to point me to where to go, and I wasn't really sure. I didn't know the area that well. And so one of the people in the shop, not even one of the workers, just a lady there, took me out of the bakery and walked me to the other bakery that had the treat that I was looking for. She went completely out of her own way to make sure that I was able to get what I was looking for. Without knowing me, I have never seen her since then. I was not able to speak the same language with her at all, and she still was as helpful as she possibly could be in the given situation. So, even though they may stare at you and wonder what you're doing there, if you ask for help, they're going to help you. It comes from this ancient idea and law of Besa, which I also made a video about and you can check out. I'll link it in the description. Albanians are some of the most helpful people to foreigners that I've found anywhere in my traveling to 30 some countries now. So yeah, that's everything I have to say. If you have other questions, feel free to message me on Instagram, email me, comment below this video if that's what you want to do. In any case, I will do my best to answer whatever questions you throw at me. Thanks for watching. Thanks to expatsinalbania.com for sponsoring this video. And I hope you enjoy your trip to Albania.